Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Noah. Welcome to Priceless Ambition. We are going to be talking today on our first episode about the nominee for the 2026 Federal Reserve President, which has been a highly anticipated conversation moving into 2026. It doesn't matter which market you're in, whether in real estate, finance, economy, it does not matter. This is going to be the decision that really drives our future into the economy. Now, Kevin Warsh, who expected that as a nomination? Not very many people. According to the betting market, I believe it was like 16% of people were anticipating a Kevin Warsh over a Kevin Hassett, which was like 70%. Because we expected to see somebody who is going to be 100% aligned with the administration. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit more excited about this than I would be about Kevin Hassett, and here's why. Because Kevin Hassett, don't get me wrong, he was a good idea, but he was a good short term. He was a good, we're going to quantitative easing. We're going to flood the markets. We're going to make things, assets rip again. We don't necessarily need that. We need somebody who's going to be longer thinking, longer minded in the focus. Like, okay, 6 months is very soon. Whether we admit it or not, 6 months is not that long. We need somebody who's going to look at the next decade, what to expect, because we have devaluated the dollar to an nth degree. We have flooded the markets with money. We have overinflated prices on so many things right now. I mean, it's starting to level out, but COVID was like the wrench in the works. It was chaos for the last few years. And you know, if you bought a house in 2020 like I did, you're not disappointed about what your house is sitting at. But flash forward to 2025, 2026, most people are now sidelined and they're not able to get into a house, right? So my main focus is focusing on real estate because that's the market I'm in, and I needed to understand that in order to provide value for you. Well, Kevin Warsh is going to be focusing more on the inflationary side of things. Now, we saw that with Jerome Powell, but Jerome Powell is very, very conservative because he was a part of when we flooded the markets with stimulus checks and overinflation, et cetera, right? So he talked about bringing inflation below 2%, and that's going to be the main focus for Kevin Warsh if he gets, if he gets in, he gets, whatever, passed along to the next step, right? Can't even think today. What the heck is that even called? Anyways, we'll jump back into that. But as long as he makes it through the Senate and they say, yep, this is the next decision, he's going to be focusing on inflation. And that part of that, we have to look at the 30,000-foot overview, right? Because President Trump can't be just nominating anybody and everybody just because he likes them or he feels they're going to work alongside him, because there are other factors that we have to consider, which is going through the process of being approved by the Senate, right? If you nominate just a buddy of yours and you think that he's going to follow every step, he's not going to get through that step, right? He's not going to get through there. He's not going to actually become the next Fed president. So anyways, Kevin Warsh makes the most sense for the inflationary because he's going to be aggressive. He's not a fan of quantitative easing. He's not going to just dump money into the markets to pull them back out like we've done for the last 50 years. He's going to be a little bit more strategic, in my opinion, which is exactly what we need. We have done this dog and pony show of printing money, lowering interest rates, flooding the market, and then pulling way back and doing quantitative tightening and pulling all that money back out of the economy. And then we see unemployment rates go up. The wave has been consistent for a long time. And what a lot of us don't really notice or realize is that is just us kicking the can down the road. We need a more permanent fix. So I think that he's going to be a little bit more aggressive, and I honestly think he's going to fight the administration a little bit more than a lot of people are anticipating, which is good, though, because we need to have that competition in this market. We need to have where people are going to butt heads a little bit. If somebody just says yes, 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 yes to the administration without any second thought, without any pushback, you don't want that person in a chair anyways. You do not want that person running the show, because anytime something goes even remotely sour, you're going to be pointing fingers and saying, well, he told me to do it. Well, they told me to do it. No, you want to have somebody who's going to be focusing on what is the best for the American people. Now, I have something towards the end that I'm going to jump into, and I think this is why he was made, that big decision was made for him. But before we do that, let's dive into, I think he made the decision because we have an administration that ran on being the top crypto capital of the world, right? And I actually watched an interview with Kevin Warsh. I couldn't find it before the show today, but I'll post it later on. He was talking about how excited he is about Bitcoin. And he explained that if you are under 40 years old, Bitcoin is your new gold. Like, for somebody who jumps that far into a cryptocurrency, I'm pretty jazzed about it. I do a little bit more strategic investing than most people do because mean, it's a high risk asset, right? High risk asset, right? But anyways, he's focusing on providing the next step into the cryptocurrency space. And we have the Clarity Act coming around the corner. And once that Clarity Act goes into effect, which again, once we see the fun little show in Washington and everybody gets back in their seats and saddles and actually votes and gets this thing passed, now we're going to see new steps in the economy. And you need that forward thinking mind, especially if we're talking about transitioning from one financial system to the next and providing some sort of new futuristic world, right? I mean, honestly, that's what we're looking at. Cryptocurrency, blockchain, no matter how you feel about it, the train is on its way. We've seen whether it's real world assets being developed, we see oracles, we see the real time settlements. You know, there's a lot of things that you should be looking at that are going to be here in the next 10 years. Another big one, you know, like supply chain management. Oh, if you guys haven't dived into that, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. I could talk for hours. But I think that's a big portion of why he got chose as well, because he's focusing on cryptocurrencies and blockchains, which is the technologies that's now integrating with AI, which is now evolving into a new financial, new system, new everything, right? Now, the last thing that I think a lot of people overlooked, he wants to completely revamp the Federal Reserve. That in turn is the checkbox on the list. That is why he made it in, because if you've been paying attention, the amount of pushback on the Federal Reserve, don't get me wrong, most presidents do this, but he is really, really shit on Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve over the last 6 months since he's been in office. A year, I don't even know, he's been in there a year and year and 2 months? A year. Anyways, he's been in there over a year at this point, just over a year. But anyways, he wants things to change. And again, as we move into a new place in this world, we are going to see that change, right? And we need the person in the seat, the driver's seat, to be aware, open, and excited for that change. And as we get through the next few pieces of the puzzle here, you know, I think he was the best fit. A lot of people are going to tell me no. They're going to say you're crazy. People are going to think I'm out of my mind, but that's okay. That's the beauty of having an opinion, right? You're never going to appeal to everybody, and the people that you do appeal to, I hope you guys do comment. I really do. Give me some opinion. Give me some feedback. What do you like? What don't you like? Because this change is coming, whether we like it or not. We're going to see a new person in the Federal Reserve president seat by the end of May. Who's it going to be, right? Kevin Warsh is obviously the next step, but there's other people out there that very well could end up in there too if the Senate doesn't approve them. So anyways, those are the few things that I'm looking at. And to factor into real estate, which is what this whole show should be about anyways, is when we get into this new space, what can we expect for 2026? I'm very optimistic about this year. There is more money coming into the economy. There is a lot more jobs that are going to be following up over the next few years. And me as a builder, we are gearing up to put as many foundations as possible into the ground this year, because already in January, things are starting to heat up. We have sold some houses. We've had a lot more showings in the secondary market. People are making moves because the real estate market is starting to get a little bit more aggressive. But builders really are holding the key to the kingdom right now, because until interest rates get in the low fives, and you know, we had that one day where I think it was January 9th, it went to 5.99 for the day. That weekend was so busy. Like, out of nowhere, people were jumping into the housing market, getting pre-approved, boom, 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 boom. And then it died off as they went back into the sixes slowly. But it just shows, like, it's like right there was like the look of, okay, fives is really that psychological level for a lot of people. And I do think we're going to see the fives this year. It's not going to be the low fives. It's not going to be the high fours, but 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9. That is not out of the woodwork. That is not out of expectation. We can see that. That's going to be here. And people are gearing up. And at that point, you're going to start to see a lot more people that are locked in at those 3 and 2% interest rates that are going to be like, okay, we can slightly adjust. We can slightly, you know, make the decision. We're still going to pay more for our house, but maybe we have to get into a new house, and they're going to start making those decisions to move. That's what we should be expecting this year. We should be expecting to see more listings. We're going to see more buyers, and we're going to see a lot more people going into new construction, because new construction provides so much value. You're getting into a house that is turnkey. You don't have to do anything when you get in there. You are getting into a house that, in most cases, you're going to cut your homeowner's insurance in half. So whether you have to pay special assessments or not, you know, you're still going to have a better deal on the back end for your homeowner's insurance. And not only that, everything's warranted. So you don't have to, you can move into a house and feel comfortable again. And even if you're paying more for a house, you're going to be that much more excited to get into it because you're buying something that you actually want. You're not settling. And that's what we saw change over the last few years is that people were settling to get into homes because that's how that was all that was on the market. And when interest rates are 2.5% and 3%, you're like, yeah, let's do it because we can change things. We can make changes. But when you're in the 7 and 8% interest rate, why would you sell? Why would you buy? Unless you can get exactly what you want. I mean, people are still buying and selling every day. I mean, we did great last year. We tripled our numbers last year compared to 24. But as we move into 2026, we have to look at, okay, what are we going to expect? What's going to be coming? And I still think, and I'm gonna ride this horse all the way through 2026. Builders are going to be running the force. Sellers are going to get ready to hop into it, and buyers are now getting excited. You know, I work in new construction for build to rents, right? So I get to see brand new homes, twin homes get rented out, single family homes, etc. And right now, on average for me, $5,000 for people to get into a twin home or single family, including your down payment and first month's rent. $5,000. And people say, I can't afford to buy a house. I have people getting closing checks back to them. They're getting money at closing. In some cases, they're only bringing $500 down. Now, this isn't everybody. Again, this is North Dakota. This is the North Dakota housing programs. This is the way that things have worked. But people are willing to be and put $5,000 down on a house for security because they think that's the best option rather than going into a house because everybody's telling them the market's going to crash. Now, I don't know if you heard the president in his interview a couple of days ago, but he said that he wants prices to go up, not down. Now, people can come at me and say, well, he can say what, it doesn't matter. His focus is he wants to provide more value for the people that did buy homes, that their home prices don't crash. And I had to raise prices 5 to 7% on most of my builds this year because product is going up. The one thing that people don't really consider until they're in the heat of the moment is that things do continuously go up. Things don't get like things aren't going down. Even in the market that we saw for 2024, 2025, I know there was bigger swings in the bigger markets, New York, Arizona, Florida. Florida for sure is getting slaughtered right now. But in North Dakota, in a place where we have high, oil, we have high coal, we have a lot of natural resources, I saw maybe a 2% change in the negative in the last few years. And this year, they're saying only probably a 1% on average growth around the United States. I think North Dakota is going to have a better year than that. I think the curve looks a lot different. There's a lot of people moving here. Bismarck itself is really starting to expand. I mean, our biggest flex is we got a Costco. Cheers to that. No, we have more companies making their way here, and there's a few NDAs that I've looked into where, there are other big companies looking to make their move into Bismarck, and a lot of people are moving here because it's still affordable to buy a house. These bigger markets, you can buy a house that's from 1920 and it's 1,600 square feet, 3 bedrooms. You're paying $600,000. I went to the West Coast, learned a little bit about their market. Wow. Compared to what I can buy here for $600,000, it's a night and day difference. I can build a brand new house for over 3,000 square feet and pay less than $600,000. And that's even including specials. Like, holy shit, right? So anyways, this year's going to be a different year than we were really expecting. And I think it's just because of over the last few months, everything's really changed. We've seen a lot more movement. And as we move into midterms, this is my final point. Midterm elections, you guys, this is the year of the years to be getting into assets because both sides have to say we're better and we're going to do better and we're going to provide more value to the economy, to the American people, et cetera, because they need to gain seats. And whatever side you're on, it doesn't matter. Focus on what the reality is. And the reality is they're going to do whatever they can to make themselves look better so that you vote for them in the election this year. So let's move into 2026 with optimism, hopium, and be ready for what to expect. So make sure, DM me if you have questions about this market. DM me if you have any sort of concerns about this market. I would love to dive in depth. The more information that you can provide to me, the more I can provide to you. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.